Good morning, you all. This shit is literally getting out of hand, okay? And what it is, you got these people that want to run around here, and this is why motherfuckers, in a way, kind of made fun of black people, black Americans particularly, because it seems like every few years niggas having an identity crisis. 1 minute, we motherfucker what? Ancient Egyptian, which yes, the ancient Egyptians were black, but they wasn't they wasn't related to no black Americans. You had niggas on this Hotep shit. Then you had niggas that's Moors, following up under Noble Drew Ali, the Moors. Then you had niggas that were I forgot why Nubians or whatever shit. Then you had niggas that were what you call Hebrew Israelites. You got some niggas up here talking about all the tribes of Israel was brought over here, including Native Americans, Puerto Ricans, Mexicans, all them descendants of Israelites that came over, which is sound retarded as fuck. All y'all niggas I get a headache just listening to y'all niggas talk this intellectual, dishonest jargon of bullshit ass facts that y'all pull off the ass because y'all niggas y'all want to have an identity because we've been we've been over here for 400 years. Now FBA, I go along with that. With us calling ourselves FBA, a foundational black American. I can ride with that. I can rock with that. Even more so than us calling ourselves African American, because even though we are of African descent, we've been 400 years out of Africa. So we really don't have no ties to the African continent or nobody in Africa to call ourselves African. But the foundational black American descendant of American descendant FBA, foundational black Americans, I could go with FBA. I can ride with that. But what fucked me up is you got niggas running around here talking about they indigenous Americans. Talking about, and basically you got some that telling even indigenous people that, oh, y'all ain't really Native Americans because us copper-colored black people was over here first and y'all came over from the bird straight later. Don't got no evidence of it. Now I'll tell you this, I understand this part when they talked about Mansi Musa's journey, when Mansi Musa's nephews, they all took a ship over to the Americas a long time ago, back before Christopher Columbus. I could go with that. That you did have some Africans that came over here during that time before the Spanish came and Europeans came. Because even, let's be honest, Christopher Columbus said he seen Negroes living among certain tribes that came over here, even found even some of the indigenous tribes on the islands gave them gold-tipped arrows that the Moors gave them. Because they, the United States, over in the Americas, they didn't know how to, they didn't have no smelting technology to smelt any kind of metal and shit over there. But then again, we could be wrong because they smelt the Inca and Maya was able to smell the gold and metal and shit. So the technology was there. We don't know, but Christopher Columbus did say he seen Africans living amongst some of the indigenous Indians. Do that mean that they were indigenous to the Americas? No. They probably came over from Africa with their first journey of Mansa Musa's nephews. But however, you got Negroes running around here talking about we indigenous Americans, and then they also say we indigenous Americans and Hebrew Israelites. Now, as far as our DNA test is concerned, I'm gonna show you what DNA test fucking shit up. Where they told this brother that he said he did a DNA, myancestors.com did a DNA test, and his DNA test came back that he came from Scandinavia and Finland. Now this dude that's darker than me, and he said they came back with DNA traces saying that he was Finnish and he was Norwegian from Scandinavia. This a brother, and the DNA test told him that. That shows you can't really trust that shit. You can't even trust that shit. And you got him actually believing that he's Scandinavian, and Danish. But nevertheless, I'm just getting tired of these goddamn pretendians, like the Dave Calloway type. They gotta pull up old ass drawings that go back from fucking 16 and shit, like the hundreds, and they actually want to run around talking about that black people indigenous. If you had black people that were indigenous all over the United States, then why would you go to the Northwest, the Pacific Northwest, the out west and shit, like out there in North Dakota? Why all the Native Americans look the same from North Dakota, Washington, Montana, Idaho, all the way down to Mexico? Damn near you go down to South America. All of them people look alike. Why? Yes, you do have some blacks that mix with them. Yes, well, like I said, you do have that mix where you have Africans that intermingle with indigenous people in certain places, like in Mexico, Central America, South America. Yes, you do have that admixture where you had Africans and indigenous people that intermarried and shit. They did that a lot in like places in Central America, like in Mexico. They did that a lot. You do have the African descendant slaves that intermingled with the indigenous people throughout the Americas. But far as on them already being there, no, they did not. They wasn't always there. And you got these Negroes running with this shit. And when you go, you pull up resources on it, you can't. The argument falls flat. It falls flat. And then, like I said, another reason why they push this shit, like I think this shit a psyops, because you got black people wanting reparations and tangibles. Well, since y'all up there trying to claim somebody's identity, now, you do have black people that are Cherokee, Chickasaw, Choctaw, due to the fact you had the 5 civilized tribes that had owned black slaves. And just like, the white men, they were laying up, the 5 civilized tribes, the men were laying up with the slave women. They were laying up them Native Americans that owned slaves of the 5 civilized tribes, the Cherokee, the Choctaw, Chickasaw Creek. What happened? They were laying up with them black women out there working in the cotton field. Native Americans see their sisters looking voluptuous and shit. He tuck in and sometimes the Native American men will marry their women like the white men did. So you had that going on. It wasn't no black people indigenous here. Now, we ain't saying that black people didn't come over from Africa thousands of years ago. Of course, you got melanated people all over the goddamn planet, Africoid people all over the planet. But just to say that, we came over here, we was over here, and we was indigenous, we ain't no evidence, you make yourselves look stupid. And then, I think that shit is psyops. Because while y'all going around here saying we indigenous Americans, they can say, well, they'll use that shit, weaponize that shit, and say, well, we don't have to give y'all reparations since y'all running around talking about y'all indigenous American, because we already gave them reparations. You see what I'm saying? That shit can be weaponized against us not to get reparations. So y'all niggas y'all need to cut that shit out, man. If y'all don't got no empirical evidence backing it up, which is not any, it's just a lot of shit that they throw together and said, "There, this show you that we indigenous Americans by looking at some old papers, newspapers." And you, like I said, you had that intermixing of indigenous people, even in the United States. And from the 1700s, you had, like I said, you had Native Americans that owned slaves that were trying to assimilate into white culture. And the white people told them, hey, in order for you to assimilate, you got to take on these black slaves. So you had some of the 5 civilized tribes that did that. You had indigenous people that ran away and lived down in Florida with the Seminoles, and they gave hell to the United States for years. That's why you got all those forts down in the South, in Georgia, Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, because you had those indigenous Creek and Seminole Indians that intermarried with the blacks that was going around butchering white folks. So you had that. They had a lot of forts. That's why you had all them forts down south in the southeast in Georgia, Florida, North Carolina, and South Carolina. You had a lot of forts because they were getting attacked by those Creek and Seminole Indians that intermarried and that stayed and gave Andrew Jackson them hell before the Trail of Tears. And they gave a lot of the Creek, Cherokee, Choctaw, Chickasaw land in Oklahoma. And the funny thing is, at that time, you had a lot of disputes between some of the Indians in the Southwest because you had actually indigenous people bringing a new indigenous people that were more Western, which was the Cherokee, Creek, Choctaw, and a lot of people never thought about that they got into conflict with other tribes that were already there. It's just like, for instance, they brought people from the Americas, black people from Africa, from the United States. Yes, you brought, a lot of people don't know, the people that settled Angola. That's why I told a homeboy they had Native Americans in Africa, because you had Native Americans that they transported with their black slaves and blacks over to Angola. And then that became a conflict over there because you had indigenous, in Liberia. In Liberia, you had people that were indigenous already to the first American colony in Liberia, because Liberia used to be United States' only colony in Africa. That's why Liberia got a flag that looks similar to the Puerto Rican flag and the American flag. And I heard some Puerto Ricans say, oh, we already had this flag before the United States had their flag. No, they did not. Stop. They did not. But anyway, man, I just thought I'd talk about this shit because this shit just getting out of hand with this indigenous pretendian shit. It just really getting out of hand.